On January 29, 2025, tragedy struck the skies over Washington, D.C., when a catastrophic midair collision occurred above the Potomac River. The incident involved American Airlines Flight 5342, a Bombardier CRJ-700 regional jet, and a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter. The collision claimed the lives of all 67 individuals aboard both aircraft, leaving the nation in shock and prompting urgent questions about how such an accident could occur in one of the most closely monitored airspaces in the world. The American Airlines flight had departed earlier that evening from Wichita, Kansas, on a routine journey to Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, DCA. The jet carried 64 people, including passengers and crew, as it approached its final descent into Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, the U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter was operating in the same vicinity on a mission whose specifics remain classified. At approximately 9 p.m. local time, the two aircraft collided at an altitude of roughly 300 feet above the Potomac River. Witnesses described a deafening explosion as the aircraft struck each other. The collision sent both the jet and the helicopter plunging into the icy waters below. Rescue teams responded immediately, but the devastation was total. There were no survivors. From the initial analysis, it appears the Black Hawk helicopter may have inadvertently entered the flight path of the descending jet. Air traffic control, ATC recordings, reveal that moments before the crash, a controller advised the helicopter crew to maneuver behind the approaching jet. However, there was no recorded response from the helicopter's crew. This lack of communication is now a key focus of the investigation.
I'm not sure how to process it. Shoot, I'm sorry. Which is why I'm here. Many of you may know my husband's my agent, and he keeps getting calls to do interviews, and I thought that was weird. I didn't feel like it was right to be home and have doing interviews for this. And so I called Elin. I'm like, what are you doing? I think we just all need to go together. And she said, let me call my mom. And so we're like, okay, we'll meet you in an hour. And we just wanted to be here and be part of our community. Anytime I've been able to be here and watch them grow, the kids here really work hard, their parents work hard to be here, but I feel for the athletes, the skaters, their families, but anyone that was on that plane, not just the skaters, because it's just such a tragic event, and we've been through tragedies before as Americans, as people, and we are strong, and I guess it's how we respond to it. And so my response was to be with people I care about and I love and I needed support. So that's why I'm here. And I don't know, a little bit at a time. I think it's a shock. I wasn't woken up in the morning and saw it. I was watching like all night. So I probably look tired, but and then when you find out, you know some of the people on the plane, is even a bigger blow.
As the two aircraft made contact, the resulting impact was catastrophic. The wreckage scattered across the Potomac River, complicating recovery efforts due to freezing temperatures and ice covering parts of the river's surface. Emergency responders faced significant challenges as they worked tirelessly to retrieve remains and debris. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, is leading the investigation into the crash, with assistance from the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and the U.S. Army. Their immediate focus includes analyzing data from the recovered cockpit voice recorders and flight data recorders. These devices may hold crucial insights into the final moments leading up to the collision. Investigators are also scrutinizing ATC protocols and the coordination between military and civilian aircraft, particularly in restricted airspace near Washington, D.C. Now, let's dive into the Simpsons episode that predicted a plane crash. Everyone is probably familiar with The Simpsons and their uncanny ability to predict the future. This time, the internet is buzzing about a supposed prediction involving a plane crash. Before we get into the specific episode in question, let's take a moment to delve into the track record of The Simpsons. I mean, who else has managed to predict everything from Donald Trump becoming president, to smartwatches, to the Disney-Fox merger? It's honestly uncanny how many real-world events this show has seemingly called ahead of time. And if you're a fan or follower of the series, you know it's all wrapped up in their trademark satire and humor. But how do they do it? Is it just a case of writers being so tuned into the cultural zeitgeist that their jokes end up becoming reality? Or is there something more mysterious going on? These are the questions that keep us all hooked. Now, onto the latest conspiracy. Could The Simpsons have predicted a devastating plane crash? The buzz stems from a particular episode that aired way back in the 1990s, Season 5, Episode 19, titled Sweet Seymour Skinner's Badass Song. While the episode is primarily about Bart accidentally getting Principal Skinner fired, there's a brief scene that has people freaking out. In the background of one shot, you can see a news report playing on a TV. The anchor is reporting about a plane crash, and the graphic shows a passenger jet colliding with another object midair. The eerie part? The depiction bears an unsettling resemblance to recent real-life events, specifically the tragic crash over Washington, D.C. Coincidence? Maybe. But when it comes to The Simpsons, fans are always quick to draw parallels, and this one feels a little too close for comfort. Before the plane crash news report in The Simpsons Season 5, Episode 19, the scene that immediately precedes it involves a discussion between Principal Skinner and Superintendent Chalmers. In this scene, Skinner is trying to justify his actions after the school talent show went terribly wrong. Skinner and Chalmers are in the school auditorium, and Skinner is making excuses for his failed leadership.
Did you just call me a liar?
No, I said you were fired.
Oh. That's much worse.
He then tries to cover up the disastrous events by claiming he has everything under control. This conversation leads to a commercial break, where the news report about the plane crash is shown. On the TV screen, you see a jet spiraling out of control after what appears to be a mid-air collision. It's a pretty classic moment where the humor comes from Skinner's desperate attempts to salvage the situation. Sound familiar? This has led many to believe that the show somehow predicted the catastrophic event involving American Airlines Flight 5342 and the U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter. But here's where it gets even stranger. The episode's dialogue. A character watching the news remarks, "Guess I won't be flying anytime soon." While it's a throwaway joke in the context of the show, it resonates eerily with the fear and anxiety many feel after hearing about real-life aviation disasters. Fans have pointed out that even the location, near a coastline, bears some similarity to Washington, D.C.'s geography. While the show doesn't name any specific place, the visuals have enough parallels to spark conversations. Could it all be coincidence? After all, plane crashes, while tragic, aren't entirely uncommon. News reports about aviation accidents have been a part of our lives for decades, so maybe this scene was just a generic reference to something the writers assumed might happen at some point. That being said, The Simpsons has built such a reputation for eerie predictions that it's hard not to feel a little spooked. Fans have cataloged over 30 predictions from the show that came true, including the invention of autocorrect. Remember when Dolph misspelled beat up Martin and the phrase got autocorrected to eat up Martha? That scene basically predicted the frustration of early autocorrect systems. The Higgs boson particle. In a 1998 episode, Homer is seen standing in front of a chalkboard with an equation that physicists later said predicted the mass of the Higgs boson particle. COVID-19 and murder hornets. In an episode called Marge and Chains, Springfield is hit with a pandemic, and as a bizarre side plot, bees invade the town. With that kind of track record, it's hard not to give this plane crash theory at least some thought. What makes this prediction so creepy is that unlike some of The Simpsons' other predictions, this one feels particularly haunting because of the human cost involved. A plane crash is one of the most devastating tragedies imaginable, and the recent event over Washington, D.C. has left many mourning the loss of loved ones. This emotional weight adds a layer of gravity to the discussion. It's not just about marveling at The Simpsons' predictive powers. It's about grappling with the real-life consequences of the events they seem to foreshadow. That's what makes this particular theory stand out among others. Maybe it's all a coincidence, a byproduct of talented writers who are just really good at satirizing the world around them. Or maybe there's something more to it, something we can't quite put our finger on. Either way, one thing's for sure. The Simpsons will continue to captivate many people with their strange blend of humor, insight, and apparently prophecy. Meanwhile, the Washington, D.C. plane collision has reignited discussions about aviation safety. particularly the challenges of managing air traffic in regions where civilian and military operations intersect. The Potomac River lies within a heavily regulated airspace due to its proximity to Washington, D.C., and the presence of multiple airports, military installations, and no-fly zones. Such areas require precise communication and coordination to ensure safety, yet the events of January 29th suggest a breakdown in these protocols. This disaster is a sobering reminder of the risks inherent in air travel, even in the most controlled environments. It marks the deadliest aviation accident in the United States since 2009 and the first fatal crash involving a U.S. carrier in over 15 years. The loss of life and the circumstances surrounding the crash have left many questioning how a tragedy of this magnitude could occur. American Airlines CEO Robert Isom expressed profound sorrow over the incident, emphasizing the airline's commitment to cooperating fully with the investigation. "We are heartbroken by this loss and determined to uncover the cause," he stated in a public address. The FAA also released a statement acknowledging the complex nature of airspace operations in the D.C. area and pledged to work closely with all parties involved to prevent similar incidents in the future. Government officials, including Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, have weighed in, pointing to potential procedural issues. Duffy noted that preliminary FAA route maps suggested the helicopter should have been operating at a lower altitude, away from the jet's descent path. While these observations are not yet confirmed, they highlight the need for a thorough review of current practices. Public reaction to the tragedy has been one of grief and concern. The victims aboard Flight 5342 and the Black Hawk helicopter are being mourned across the nation, with tributes pouring in for the passengers, crew, and military personnel who lost their lives. Many have also expressed unease about the safety of air travel and the systems in place to prevent such disasters. As the investigation continues, authorities are looking into historical patterns of aviation accidents to better understand the unique circumstances of this collision. Midair collisions are rare, particularly in controlled airspace with advanced radar systems. However, when they do occur, they often highlight vulnerabilities in communication, coordination, or equipment. For those who have followed the unfolding events, the collision over the Potomac River serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of human systems and the importance of vigilance. Aviation experts are urging swift action to address any systemic failures uncovered by the investigation. Meanwhile, the NTSB is calling for patience as they analyze every detail to determine what went wrong and how future tragedies can be averted. The aftermath of the crash also underscores the resilience of first responders and investigators who have faced harrowing conditions to bring clarity to this event. Their efforts are a testament to the importance of accountability and the shared responsibility of ensuring safety in the skies. In the days following the tragedy, the nation has come together to mourn and reflect. The Potomac River, now the site of one of the most devastating air accidents in recent history, stands as a somber reminder of the lives lost and the work yet to be done to prevent such a calamity from happening again.
Arrested 1,179 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, but nearly half of them, 566 of the migrants, appear to have no prior criminal record besides entering the country illegally. Is the president still focused exclusively, which is a civil crime, it's not criminal?
It's a federal crime.
So I'm asking though. He said he was going to focus on those violent offenders first. So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore you are subject to deportation.
In his first week back in office after reclaiming the White House, President Donald Trump unveiled a bold and controversial agenda. Starting with his January 20th inauguration, Trump signed a flurry of executive orders, EOs, on his first full day in office, followed by a press conference with major tech leaders and a virtual address to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. This summary evaluates Trump's early actions, focusing on both the positive and contentious aspects of his policies. On his first day in office, Trump revoked 78 executive orders signed during the Biden administration, with a strong emphasis on dismantling the diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) initiatives. These policies had been criticized as promoting divisive identity politics and undermining traditional meritocratic values. Trump aimed to shift federal policy away from DEI and restore what he described as a focus on individual achievement. In his words, "We will terminate every diversity, equity, and inclusion program across the entire federal government." One immediate result was a ripple effect on corporate America. By the end of Trump's first week, several companies, including Target, Walmart, McDonald's, Meta, and Harley-Davidson, began distancing themselves from DEI programs, responding to public backlash and declining revenues. On January 27th, Trump signed an EO to eliminate what he termed gender radicalism in the military. This measure reversed policies implemented under former Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, which had allowed for taxpayer-funded diversity training and gender-focused programs. Trump's order also reinstated approximately 8,000 service members who had been discharged for refusing COVID-19 vaccine mandates. Despite the offer to return with full pay, benefits, and rank, only a small number of these individuals are expected to rejoin, highlighting the lasting damage to morale and trust within the armed forces. Another significant EO signed during Trump's first week ended affirmative action policies within federally funded institutions and government contractors. These changes built upon a 2023 Supreme Court ruling that abolished race-based admissions policies in civilian colleges, but left a loophole for military academies. Trump's new order closed this gap, effectively banning affirmative action in both federal education and employment. However, the EO did not extend to private corporations, leaving them free to continue such practices. Tightening border security remained a high priority. Trump initiated mass deportations on day one, starting with 300 individuals identified as criminal aliens. Initially, some foreign governments, such as Colombia, resisted accepting deportees. However, Trump used trade tariffs as leverage, compelling Colombian President Gustavo Petro to comply. During his virtual address to the World Economic Forum, Trump took aim at globalist policies promoted by Klaus Schwab and others. He reaffirmed his administration's stance against DEI and gender ideology, stating, "My executive orders abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense. There are only two genders, male and female. We will have no men participating in women's sports, and transgender surgeries will be exceedingly rare." Trump's initial week in office demonstrated a decisive commitment to rolling back policies he viewed as detrimental to traditional values and national interests. While his supporters see these actions as a return to core principles and governance based on merit, critics argue that his policies risk alienating marginalized communities and reversing progress on inclusion and diversity. Trump's return to the presidency has set a combative tone, with sweeping changes aimed at reshaping federal priorities. Whether these measures will yield long-term benefits or deepen societal divisions remains to be seen. However, his actions have already sparked significant debate and will undoubtedly influence the political and cultural landscape for years to come. The U.S. border crisis was declared a national border emergency by President Donald Trump, prompting the initial deployment of 1,500 U.S. Army and Marine personnel to the southern border. This move was accompanied by plans for an additional 10,000 troops, including members of the National Guard, to address what was described as an unprecedented surge. Trump stated firmly, "We will not allow our nation's sovereignty to be compromised." One of Trump's earliest actions upon taking office was announcing the United States' withdrawal from the World Health Organization. This decision marked a significant stance against global initiatives that he argued could lead to unnecessary restrictions and mandates. Trump positioned this move as part of a broader effort to reassert national independence in global health governance. During his inaugural address, Trump emphasized his desire to reduce international conflicts and foster global peace, declaring, "My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I aspire to be, a peacemaker and a unifier." On January 23rd, via teleconference, Trump addressed the World Economic Forum, WEF, in Davos, a gathering often associated with global policy initiatives. He announced the United States' withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement, describing it as an unfair and one-sided arrangement. Trump further asserted that leaving the agreement would free the U.S. from obligations tied to the Green New Deal and electric vehicle mandates. These measures, he argued, would allow for the implementation of policies aimed at revitalizing the U.S. economy while maintaining energy independence. The reception at the WEF was notably restrained, given its long-standing advocacy for policies like multiculturalism and mass immigration. However, global observers continued to track the forum's broader initiatives, confident that its agenda for addressing global challenges would progress regardless of U.S. participation. One of the more contentious issues addressed was Trump's revocation of Executive Order 14067, which had been enacted in 2022. This order had laid groundwork for the potential introduction of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. In a January 23, 2025 executive order, Trump declared, "Except where required by law, agencies are hereby prohibited from pursuing the development or promotion of CBDCs within the United States or internationally." This action effectively halted ongoing projects related to digital currency frameworks, framing them as unnecessary and restrictive to economic freedom. In another significant development, Trump issued a full pardon for 1,500 individuals connected to the events of January 6, 2021. Many of these individuals had faced prolonged detention, which Trump and his supporters characterized as unjust. This decision was widely discussed as it aimed to address grievances tied to what some viewed as overly aggressive prosecutions. Critics, however, noted that Trump had previously refrained from taking a strong public stance in defense of these individuals during his time out of office. Footage from January 6th showed some protesters being allowed into the Capitol by law enforcement, which later fueled debates about the events of that day. Nonetheless, Trump's pardons were described as part of his broader effort to heal divisions and address perceived injustices. Throughout these actions, Trump consistently framed his decisions as measures to restore national sovereignty, protect individual freedoms, and foster economic and social stability. Whether viewed as controversial or transformative, these policies and decisions continue to shape discussions about governance and leadership in modern America. During the contested 2020 U.S. presidential election, allegations arose claiming manipulation and suppression of evidence related to voter irregularities. Critics argue that these events played into a larger narrative involving political theater designed to polarize the nation. Former President Trump's responses and subsequent legal challenges were seen by some as part of a preordained strategy, with his opponents viewing his actions as divisive. Amid these claims, critics have pointed to a historical trend of influential leaders being shaped by powerful backers. For Trump, long-standing relationships with financial elites, including figures tied to international banking, have fueled speculation about his motivations and ties. His connection to Zionist groups and individuals, including his son-in-law Jared Kushner, has been cited as evidence of deeper alliances. Trump's foreign policy decisions, particularly in the Middle East, drew significant attention. In 2020, he authorized the targeted killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, a move that escalated tensions with Iran. While supporters praised the act as a decisive blow against terrorism, critics argued it was part of a broader agenda targeting Iran to serve the interests of Israel and other allied nations. This event, coupled with Trump's unwavering support for Israel, has led to debates about his administration's alignment in the region. The narrative of a Zionist agenda has long been a controversial topic in geopolitical discussions. Critics of global power structures point to historical patterns of influence, including ties to organizations such as Chabad Lubavitch, which some claim holds sway over political leaders. Figures like Netanyahu and Putin have also been drawn into this narrative, with critics highlighting their alleged connections to influential religious and ideological groups. In Russia, President Vladimir Putin's relationship with Chabad Lubavitch leaders, such as Rabbi Berel Lazar, has been interpreted by some as evidence of deep ideological affiliations. Putin's actions, including the dismissal of officials critical of the group, further fuel these claims. However, his broader political maneuvers suggest a complex balancing act between domestic priorities and international pressures. Among the most contentious theories is the idea of a preordained global conflict, often referred to as Zionist versus Islamic World War III, prophesied in some interpretations of Freemason Albert Pike's writings. Proponents argue that current geopolitical tensions align with these predictions, viewing escalating conflicts in the Middle East as part of a larger plan. While these theories remain speculative and controversial, they highlight the enduring complexities of global power dynamics and the influence of historical and ideological narratives on modern geopolitics. Understanding these perspectives requires a critical lens and an awareness of the broader socio-political landscape shaping world events. During a time of significant political and ideological shifts nearly a century ago, neo-messianist Baruch Levy reportedly wrote an insightful and revealing letter on June 1, 1928. In this letter, He expressed his belief in the future realization of Jewish Marxist ideals, reflecting on the vision of Karl Marx and a potential global transformation. The Jewish people, taken collectively, will be their own Messiah. Their rule over the universe will be achieved through the unification of other human races, the abolition of borders and monarchies, structures that uphold individualism, and the establishment of a universal republic. This republic will recognize the rights of Jews as citizens everywhere. In this new organization of humanity, the descendants of Israel, spread across the globe and unified by their traditions, will become a dominant influence, particularly if they establish leadership among the working masses. Governments within this universal republic will transition into the hands of the Jewish people through the triumph of the proletariat. Individual ownership will then be abolished, replaced by the collective administration of public wealth. In this way, the promise of the Talmud, that in the time of the Messiah, the possessions of the nations will be under Israel's control, will be fulfilled. This vision, as described, presents a thought-provoking perspective on global governance and social restructuring. Levy's confidence in this transformation underscores the aspirations and challenges of his time. Fast forward to the modern era, many political leaders such as Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin have been interpreted as navigating complex alliances and narratives. While often portrayed as populist nationalist leaders, some critics argue they may serve broader interests tied to influential power brokers. On January 20th, Trump signed an executive order titled Restoring Freedom of Speech and Ending Federal Censorship. This order aimed to ensure that no federal officer, employee, or agent could unconstitutionally abridge the free speech of any American. 3 days later, during a speech at the World Economic Forum, Trump highlighted this initiative, stating, "No longer will our government label the speech of our own citizens as misinformation or disinformation." However, concerns emerged when the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act was passed in May 2024. Critics claim that this legislation, building on Trump's 2019 executive order against anti-Semitism, may inadvertently curtail free speech by conflating criticism of Israel's policies with anti-Semitism. This dynamic has raised debates about the balance between combating hate speech and protecting constitutional freedoms. Trump's administration has also been associated with advancing technological and surveillance capabilities. On January 21st, during his first press conference of his second term, Trump was joined by tech leaders, including Oracle founder Larry Ellison, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, and SoftBank's Masayoshi Son, to announce the launch of a $500 billion initiative called the Stargate Project. This ambitious venture aims to revolutionize artificial intelligence, AI, and its applications in healthcare, security, and infrastructure. Ellison explained the project's potential to transform medicine, using AI-driven systems to develop personalized mRNA vaccines within 48 hours for diseases such as cancer. While promising innovation, this announcement also reignited debates surrounding the ethics and safety of mRNA technology, particularly in the wake of controversies surrounding COVID-19 vaccines. In addition, Trump's administration emphasized advancements in biometric technologies, promoting a biometric entry-exit visa tracking system for both citizens and international visitors. These developments have raised questions about privacy, surveillance, and the growing influence of AI in daily life. Donald Trump's record has been a topic of debate, particularly regarding his promotion of the Operation Warp Speed initiative during the COVID-19 pandemic. This program accelerated the development and distribution of mRNA-based vaccines, a point he has often highlighted as a major accomplishment. Critics, however, argue that these vaccines have raised serious concerns, alleging significant adverse effects and questioning the overall safety and long-term implications of the rollout. In recent discussions, some theorists have suggested that Trump's policies align with broader agendas, such as the controversial Agenda 2030, which is speculated to involve global depopulation strategies. These claims position Trump as a figure working within a framework designed to consolidate power and influence over the population. This perspective contrasts sharply with his Make America Great Again, MAGA campaign, which gained widespread support for its promise to prioritize American interests and restore national pride. There is also a growing narrative that casts Trump as a controlled opposition figure, a leader who appears to challenge established systems while allegedly advancing covert agendas. This notion ties into broader conspiracy theories involving secretive organizations and individuals, such as the alleged influence of occult figures or global elites. For instance, some theorists draw symbolic connections between the term MAGA in lowercase referencing esoteric practices, and claims that Trump's actions align with darker, hidden motives rather than his public-facing promises. Further fueling these concerns are recent developments in technology and policy, such as the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, the increasing surveillance of online activity, and the potential erosion of privacy rights. Critics point to the implementation of AI-driven censorship, the suppression of dissenting voices, and fears of thought crime accusations as indicative of a trend toward authoritarian governance. These worries are compounded by economic concerns, such as rumors of frozen bank accounts, social control mechanisms, and a perceived global shift toward what some describe as a beast system of governance. Supporters of these theories argue that these measures represent a betrayal of the American people's trust and constitutional rights. They warn that such actions pave the way for a future where individual freedoms are undermined in favor of centralized control and depopulation strategies. While these claims are widely circulated within certain circles, it is essential to approach them critically. Examining the sources, evidence, and motivations behind such narratives helps separate fact from speculation and provides a clearer understanding of the policies and their broader implications. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and I'll see you in our next video.